Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Now, first thing being first, don't panic. Don't panic. The President of the United States, Obama, has it completely under control. Now, of course, new cases keep emerging state by state. In fact, now the Ebola spread is multi-state. The outbreak is now taken root in New York City, the concrete jungle that makes up New York. You know, the subway system and the giant park and the sky-high real estate prices and, you know, walking like a sardine next to everybody else around you has now spread to a doctor, I believe his name is Craig Spencer, who was recently treating the disease, Ebola, in Liberia through an organization called Doctors Without Borders. It's kind of funny. It's like here in the United States, Obama without borders, just letting the plane flights come in. Makes you ask the question why the doctor wasn't quarantined for a minimum of 21 days upon arrival. He also said he doesn't know how he caught it because he was wearing, again, full protective gear. And he doesn't think that there was a breach, so he has no idea how he caught Ebola. But it's not airborne, folks. And again, don't panic. The President of the United States, Barack Obama, has it all under control. You know what I found very disturbing, but not shocking at all, because again, I've been talking about this for months now before the first case ever willfully and willingly came to the United States as a result of the direct actions or inaction, for that matter, of the President of the United States himself by not stopping incoming air traffic from the Ebola hot zone. You see, they could sell the idea that they didn't know about it before, but now they know about it. See, now they're willingly allowing these flights overseas into America, and now it's spreading into new states, not just Texas, not just multiple infections, not just the death of Thomas Eric Duncan, but now a doctor, part of the upper class in New York City who came back, wasn't quarantined, and did about absolutely everything wrong that he possibly could do the day prior to being officially diagnosed with the disease in a 100-degree plus grade fever. It was originally reported as 103, but I think it was 100.3. He rode the subway in New York City. He took a cab, I think the new service Uber. He went to the park, and then he went bowling. The only thing this guy didn't do is have sex with half of New York City and exchange his bodily fluids that way. But again, it's not airborne, folks. Now, the president spoke of this. This is what I found not really surprising, because I told you about this before, but should give you the chills.
There may come a time, sometime in the future, where we are dealing with an airborne disease that is much easier to catch and is deadly. And in some ways, this has created a trial run for federal, state, and local public health officials and healthcare providers, as well as the American people, to understand the nature of that and why it's so important that we're continually building out our public health systems, but we're also practicing them.
The president spoke yesterday about the fact that we need to be prepared for potential airborne diseases. Yeah, that's right. Remember how they said don't panic? You know, the disease, they won't even mention the word airborne because, you know, Ebola can't go airborne. Now the president is speaking publicly saying we've got to be prepared for airborne diseases because, you know, that could be a potential threat to Americans. So, I mean, what's really going on here, folks? Why would the president keep our borders open? Why would he still keep them open? Why wouldn't he quarantine known doctors that are taking supposedly every precaution on their way back from these countries? Why wouldn't they be in an imposed quarantine for at least 21 days upon returning? Why would they continue to allow this? You know, watch my documentary, Ebola, The Truth About the Outbreak. It's up to some 400,000 plus views. It's going to get millions, especially as this continues to worsen. But it's absolutely unbelievable to me. Why would they do this, though? Again, watch my documentary. It'll give you a lot of insight. I really believe this is biological warfare. Now, it's either the United States, the perpetrator, which I think that there's a lot of merit to that, considering they still are allowing the disease to come over. Again, they're not doing anything to stop it. They're allowing it to come over. It's continuing to spread through their actions, but more importantly, their direct inaction. Or it could be a terrorist group. It could be a foreign nation. It could be a rogue state that doesn't like the United States. I mean, even if you don't believe the conspiracy side of it, that the U.S. federal government, that the West is behind this, most Americans can buy into the fact that an enemy state, a rogue nation, a terrorist organization like ISIS might plant the disease, right? So at the very least, we know that they're not telling us everything they know about it. They say it's not airborne. They say don't panic. They've got it quarantined. It's all under control. They lose the old CDC guy, and he puts in a Caesar, the term for a pre-1917 Russian emperor, of all things, into the new position because they haven't stopped it or contained it originally. Again, everything's going wrong that possibly could. There's even images of police officers disposing of Ebola-infected waste into trash cans. Everything that could possibly be going wrong is going wrong. Again, this guy, Craig Spencer, the doctor, who should have been quarantined but wasn't, who was allowed to fly back in the United States, and people are still coming in, people like Thomas Eric Duncan that aren't showing fevers at the time but are bringing the infection with them, exposing themselves to potentially millions of people in New York City, the concrete jungle that makes up New York, riding the subway, going to the park, taking a cab service, and then going bowling one day before hazmat suit men show up at his house like the Gestapo and say that they've got it under control. You see, the reality, folks, is it's not under control at all. The federal government isn't telling you something very important about this disease. And in my humble opinion, I really believe this is biological warfare. Whether or not the US government is behind it, or it's a rogue state, or it's a terrorist organization like ISIS, or some other fabrication that's been put into our mind through the subconscious of the mainstream media. This, to me, isn't the bug that they keep referencing. The Zaire virus. Oh, it's not airborne. You know, you have to have contact. You have to have a sexual intercourse to get it. How is it then possible that these doctors, trained professionals that are operating around the disease, treating patients overseas, wearing full protective gear, are coming down with the virus? A nurse in Spain did. There was another nurse, I believe. And now this doctor, Craig Spencer, in New York City. Again, they're not telling you everything about this disease. Why would the United States want to eradicate us? Why would they want to kill us? What would be the motive behind that? Investigate that for yourself, and you'll get closer to the truth. So what happens if it gets worse? What happens if it really does take fire and spreads like a wildfire in New York City? We'll expect a mass exodus from not just New York City, but all major U.S. cities. Yeah, all those social elites are going to have to get out of New York. How are those sky-high real estate prices going to be treating them then? I actually don't think anything would happen. The Federal Reserve will just launch quantitative easing 1,000 and boost prices up. They're actually bullish, the Ebola outbreak. You know, maybe they'll take this more seriously because it's a doctor this time in New York City who's a part of the upper class, who lives in an upper class building. You know, it could potentially infect people like Mayor de Blasio, who specifically tweeted today a tweet of him riding the subway as to allay concerns and fear, Ebola hysteria, like that there's nothing to worry about. Yeah, he probably put a gas mask on right after they quickly snapped the photo. Who knows? Maybe he has Ebola now too. You know he's thinking about it. See, I don't think all of these officials are on the inside. They're not necessarily getting Obama's memo. I think the president knows. For sure. Obama knows what's happening. There's a reason he hasn't shut down our borders. There's a reason this doctor wasn't quarantined. And these people are still coming over. Again, it has nothing to do about helping these countries. We can send military aircraft, non-commercial airlines overseas to help these nations. We can drop off supplies, water, drugs, whatever they need. We don't have to keep our borders open, but they are. And the question is why? And again, what was originally conspiracy theory months and months and months ago, when I told you the disease would come to the United States as a result of the outbreak in Africa, that it was being far underestimated by the CDC, which said it would only be 1,000 or few cases, which has now turned into an estimate of, I believe, 1.4 million by the end of January, and that's probably wrong, to potentially maybe even millions here in the United States. The disease spreading multi-state, not just in Texas, but in New York. One of the most populous places, not just in the States, but in the world. Americans packed in like sardines. Doctors not being quarantined, riding subways where you and your family, if you live in New York or the city, or maybe going to work or going to your job, bowling, with his significant other, taking a cab, going to the park, flying commercial airlines. You know, the president should have to fly commercial now, unless or until he actually shuts down our borders. Bill de Blasio should have to take the subway every single day and expose himself to the great risk that is and makes up this Ebola outbreak 2014. Again, watch my documentary, click the link below. It's going viral, no pun intended, spreading like a disease. And again, you heard it here first, folks. I've got a dozen or so videos on Ebola, backdated months and months ago. Told you this was going to happen, told you it was going to get much worse, told you it was being underestimated for a reason by the CDC. I told you there was a reason the president wasn't shutting down our borders, that it was either negligence or criminal intent to infect us. And now enough time has passed, there's only one answer. There's only one piece of the puzzle. It's criminal negligence. It's biological warfare. Whether our government's behind it, or another government's behind it, or a terrorist group is behind it, somebody's behind it. And this disease, I know with 110% degree certainty, isn't behaving like the Zaire virus. How else would these doctors and these nurses catch it wearing full protective gear? And why aren't they being quarantined? I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor. Check out our sponsor, ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com, the leading innovator in water filtration systems. Get all of your water filters at ProPureUSA.com. Click the link below right now.